Welcome everyone to the Things Around 8. In this video we will talk about former President Trump's intentions and plans for Ukraine in case of victory in the presidential elections. And if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any news. Since the start of the Russian invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022, former President Trump has given several interviews in which he claimed to have what he called a perfect plan to bring an end to the war. Although he never gave great details about the supposed plan, it was understood from his statements that his plan would involve interrupting the supply of weapons to Ukraine and the consequent collapse of the entire combat front. Without weapons and ammunition from the United States, Russia would be able to advance, with Putin managing to annex all the territories he so desires to annex, and so, through the defeat of Ukraine, the war would end. This was Trump's grand plan to bring peace to that corner of Europe. A plan that, as everyone can well imagine, deeply pleased the Russians and pro-Russians, displeasing the pro-Ukrainians and, in general, almost all NATO members. The big problem is that, for them, if Putin wins in Ukraine, he will continue to advance against other countries, starting with non-members of the alliance, such as Georgia and Moldova, but inevitably reaching member countries, such as Finland and the Baltic countries. Nations that directly border Russia. Therefore, in the view of these leaders, the end of Western support for Ukrainian defense would put a quick end to the war, as it would give victory to Putin. But this victory would act as a catalyst for further Russian aggression, which would inevitably end up plunging all of Europe into war. This alleged Trump plan, which as I said, was never formalized in detail by the former president and current candidate, gained strength from October 2023, with the rise of Republican Congressman Mike Johnson to the post of Speaker of Congress. As soon as Mike Johnson took office, he announced that he would not put to a vote in the Republican majority Congress the package of almost $61 billion in military aid that had been proposed by the Democratic majority Senate. His decision began a long period of 6 months of delays in approving this package, a delay that forced Ukraine to ration weapons and ammunition, allowing Russia to advance in a series of directions, most notably Avdiivka, in the Donetsk region. As the Republican majority Congress is strongly influenced by Trump, the plan to cut military aid to Ukraine, aiming to put an end to the war through Russian victory, gained strength, leading many to fear that in the event of a Russian victory, Trump in the presidential elections, Ukraine would be completely abandoned by the United States, which would result in its inevitable defeat. However, as everyone knows, in April, the billion-dollar aid package was approved by Congress, with Mike Johnson radically changing his stance and speech, even saying, on several occasions, that Russia is one of the main enemies of the United States, and that therefore, Putin cannot win in Ukraine, and that the only way to prevent this is by continuing to send military aid to Kiev. The change in stance by Congressman Mike Johnson, associated with the 101 votes in favor in the 213-member Republican bench, which allowed the approval of billion-dollar aid for Ukraine, seems to indicate that, after all, Trump's plan for Ukraine is not quite the one what many people think. It is important to emphasize that, officially, Trump has no direct role or influence in the United States Congress. However, because he is the Republican presidential candidate, and because he is the most popular Republican personality, what Trump determines has a great influence on the decisions made by other Republican politicians. Therefore, based on this, an important question arises. What are Trump's plans for Ukraine if he wins the next presidential election in the United States? I once again emphasize that there is, for now, no official statement from Trump on this, but given the evidence already presented here, such as Mike Johnson's change in stance and the 101 Republican votes that allowed the approval of the billion-dollar package for the Ukraine, Trump may, after all, have a vision very similar to that of his Democratic rival, Joe Biden, but with a fundamental difference. While Biden does not stipulate strict rules regarding how aid and financial support will be returned by Ukraine, Trump defends that this aid and support be provided in the form of loans with very clear programs for their repayment. In fact, the way the package was approved in Congress, with Mike Johnson changing the original bill approved by the Senate and including clearer rules aimed at paying aid and financial support offered to Kiev. As I said, although Trump does not have an official role in Congress, what he wants and decides ends up influencing the Republican bench. Therefore, if the package was put up for voting and, more importantly, if almost half of the Republican bench voted in favor of this package, it is because Trump, after all, wanted it that way. This seems to indicate that contrary to the signals he sent during the 2 years of war, Trump and Biden's positions regarding Ukraine are very similar, only changing the form and rigor involving how this aid will later be paid by Ukraine. If this is confirmed, it will be excellent news for Kyiv and a huge disappointment for Moscow. Thank you very much for watching the video. And now I invite you to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so we'll see you more often, and so you'll be up to date with everything that's happening.